Hello everyone, GM. Welcome back to another episode of Overpriced JPEGs. It is time for your Wednesday interview, and joining me today is Alex Taub, co-founder and CEO of Truth Labs. You know them for Goblintown, Illuminati NFT, the 187. They have launched a number of collections, and we get into several of them here, though we do focus pretty heavily on Goblintown, and we talk about Big Ink, which is the latest incarnation or the latest plot line within Goblintown that folks are probably familiar with. The thing that I find so impressive about Truth Labs is their ability to pull off really creative, interesting, I would say marketing stunts, but I think that's too simplistic. I think what they did with Goblintown was to capture a moment and to build a really amazing IP off of their ability to understand that moment. They seem to capture like magic in a bottle a little bit in some ways. And I think their most recent inclusion in the game Only Up, which has been like taking over Twitch, is another example of that. So we get into their collaboration with Only Up, how that came to be, what's in store for it in the future. So that's really fun for anybody who's been following that story. Even if you haven't, I think it's just a really interesting case study of the proliferation of a particular IP. So this is an episode for everyone. I will say we had some audio issues. So we cut in and out a little bit. My editor has been cutting around it, but I apologize if anything sounds a little bit choppy. It wasn't too frequent, but it did happen enough that I think there may be some connectivity problems that are being edited around, and we're doing our best, so I apologize for that. A couple administrative notes before we get on to the episode. One, the gin has been bottled. Overpriced gin has officially been bottled. It is in transit to a warehouse from where it will be shipped to folks. So in the next couple of weeks, we will be having the site go live where you can go and claim your overpriced gin bottle if you're an OPJ holder. I'm so glad y'all are very close to being able to try the gin at long last. The other thing is we have our next Overpriced Happy Hour is going to be in Los Angeles on July 7th with Betty NFT. That's her Twitter handle, but with Betty, founder of Deadfellas, co-founder of Deadfellas. That'll be a fun one. That's going to be in Culver City on July 7th at 6 p.m. And if you are an OPJ NFT holder, if you are a Deadfellas asset holder, or if you are a Nouns Builder NFT holder, you can go to opjtour.com right now to go reserve your seat for that event. We have added all Nouns Builder holders to that because Nouns Builder has come on as a sponsor for that event. It was a really interesting process. I was really grateful to get a glimpse into how like the proposal process works for Nouns Builder DAO. And so thank you so much for passing the proposal and being a sponsor of that upcoming event. So now to say thank you, all Nouns Builder holders. Whoa, that's kind of a mouthful. Nouns Builder NFT holders can now go and reserve their seat at opjtour.com to come attend that event. And with that, we need to hear a word from our lovely sponsors who make this show possible, and then it'll be on to my interview with Alex Taub. Y'all know I think one of the most powerful use cases for NFTs are loyalty programs, which is why I'm so excited about our latest partner, GALXE. That's GALXE. GALXE is a leading platform for building a Web3 community. It is a no-code, plug-and-play solution to create task-based campaigns and loyalty programs. With over 67 million users, GALXE has worked with folks like Optimism, Polygon, Arbitrum, and more than 2,100 other partners with reward-based loyalty programs of their own. And I'm especially excited to announce their latest product offering, GALXE Mintlist. Mintlist enables NFT projects to issue allow lists based on different user profiles. It's free to use, and projects can then take advantage of GALXE's other offerings, like Task Quest, which incentivize audience growth and user retention in the long term. Go beyond the mint and keep using GALXE's infrastructure to reward users through on and off-chain actions. GALXE's goal is to help projects grow in an authentic way and help them retain their users and communities over the long haul. And as a user, you can start contributing to your favorite Web3 communities today, joining allow lists through Mintlist and earning rewards, NFTs, oats, tokens, and points. Go to galaxy.com right now, that's GALXE.com right now, or click the link in the show notes to get started. Your Web3 community is waiting. I am so excited to announce that this year, Overpriced JPEGs has partnered with OPENSEA, the world's leading NFT marketplace, built for everyone, creators, collectors, noobs, and experts alike. I'm an OPENSEA user because they have the best selection of NFTs and a truly inclusive view of the ecosystem, supporting 8 chains and 8 global languages. I trust the systems they've put in place to keep the space safe, like copy mint protection, malicious URL detection and removal, robust verification, and more. It's why they are the place to buy, sell, and create NFTs. That's right. You know OpenSea, you use OpenSea, but did you know that OpenSea now has drops? New exclusive projects launch every week from top projects and creators, and you can check them out now using the link in the show notes. They also recently introduced self-serve drops, which is in beta, and allows creators to launch their projects right on OpenSea. This drops product gives creators access to tools like rich storytelling drop pages, multi-chain support, and drop mechanic customization. The full launch for self-serve drops is coming this spring. So check out the upcoming drops on OpenSea right now using the link in the show notes and own what moves you. You'll also be supporting the show in the process. Well, hello, AJT.
How you doing?
Let's get into the topic du jour, which is Truth Labs, maybe a little bit of Upstream talk, whatever we want to chat about here, but excited to just talk about everything you guys have done in this space. I mean, honestly, I'd love to do a little retrospective here, look back at some Goblintown stuff, talk about what you're doing with Big Ink, how it all fits in. Maybe starting here, we're in such a funny time in the market, which I guess it always is a funny time these days. Like, when is it not a funny time? But you had, as we record this, you had the Ringer sale. You had the sale of the Goose for $5.4 million yesterday, I guess.
Yeah.
And so art, it feels like it's really cemented itself. Not that it wasn't already very cemented, but as a super big use case for blockchain. You've got ordinals popping off, really interesting things happening on that side. The PFP market's struggling a bit more. And I'm curious, what is your feeling at this point in time about PFPs,
the space in general?
Yeah, and let's say like the PFP NFT model, or the model like the Goblintown model, we could even say. But we can start broad and then let's narrow in.
There's two. I mean, if you want to go in the most like technical way, there's like supply and demand, right? There's a supply of a project. There's a supply in an ecosystem, and then there's demand of those things, right? Like, so demand of NFT projects in general is like an all-time low right now, or like back to 2020, early 2021 levels, right? In terms of a lot of the volumes just blur and farming and this and that, and like the demand is pretty low. Now, then there's a layer of it, right? There's demand for specific projects, right? So like, for example, Pudgy Penguins, shout out to Luca, my buddy, got this for my daughters.
Love it.
Got the physicals. And also a bunch of like these like official. For folks
listening, we're looking at birth certificates of Pudgy plushies and some Pudgy plushies.
So like, the demand for specific projects, right, is like it ebbs and flows depending on what it is, right? So for Pudgies, it's really they're making a splash in the toys and stuff. For something like Meme Land, doing really well right now in terms of people really anticipating the meme token and just captains and all that stuff, and the folks at 9gag are just like phenomenal at that stuff. Ray's an awesome founder. To go back to your question, which is like, how am I feeling about this space? I think we're also coming to the point where a lot of the projects are thinking, okay, how do I go mainstream? How do I, go to the next level? Money is sort of like, the demand is sort of dried up in general for like a new NFT drop, right? Or like a new collection. And like, how am I thinking about like what am I? If I'm Moonbirds, I'm like the art project, right?
Yeah.
Great defining what you are and what you're going to do. But I like the best example right now, like Doodles, right? Doodles wants to go mainstream, right? They want to go, and they're doing partnerships with like Camp and things like that. And I struggle to see how going mainstream for most projects is going to trickle down any value to the NFT projects and like holders. And what I mean by that is like Luca's probably the exception, where it's like, hey, we're going to license, starting with 15, we're going to license IP, and then we're going to go and we're going to sell these things, and we're going to revenue share with you. Doodles, like, I own a Doodle. I'm not like looking to sell it. I'm not looking whatever. But I don't really see how anything Doodles is doing is going to end up, making money. And at the end of the day, there's a few things I truly believe in this space. One of them is like, everyone wants to make money in Web3, right? All they really care about is floor price and the money that they can abstract. I'd say 5% of people actually care about community and the art and all that stuff. 95% of people are just purely here for the money, meaning there's a literal bag of shit, right? And it is like literally flaming bag of shit, and it's an NFT, right? And I'm actually thinking like this could be a funny like NFT project, but there's literally bag of shit as an NFT, and the floor price was 10 ETH, right? People would be like, "This is the most amazing,
Right, right.
piece of shit I've ever seen in my life." And like if the floor continued to go up, like they would just be like, "This is just amazing. This is even better." And it just like it's not hypocrisy or anything. Nobody's like making believe that they like it, or maybe some people are a little bit. But the point is that like that is one thing I believe to be true, is that that's all that really matters.
Okay, so you talk about all these projects that are trying to go mainstream, and I hear your point on how does the value accrue back to holders at the end of all this. And you know, I think there's arguments Doodles would make certainly around like, well, with this camp activation, there's discounts and there's better access you're getting if you're a Doodles holder. And so over time, if they become Disney World and that how you get a fast pass is by owning a Doodle, well, hell, that's going to drive a lot of value back to that Doodle pass. But I do think that, and this is a question, frankly, I've been asking for over a year at this point. Like, I remember talking about this last year. It's like, you know, even if the dream comes true, like, I love Akutars. I think Akutars would be very interesting and could be an incredible film. Like, what does that actually mean if you hold an Akutar, as I do? So I understand your point. How are you thinking about it for Truth Labs? Like, what is your guys' true north? Are you trying to go mainstream right now?
Yeah, well, so we, it's funny, like, I don't know if you saw, but, Goblintown is all over the like
Twitch.
Twitch.
Yes,
stream.
I was going to ask about this.
Oh yeah. So it's like I'm thinking a lot about this, and this is like it's really cool. I mean, they're adding a bunch of other like Illuminati, Big Ink, other assets into the thing. But the other thing that's actually also happening is they are adding. You could, if you want to, you can wear a mask and be a goblin.
So is this a partnership you got with Twitch themselves?
No, so there's this there's this game called Only Up, and
okay.
I basically I was like on TikTok one night, and the game only came out like 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
I was on TikTok and I saw someone just playing it, and just like visually it's a stunning game. And it was like you're going only up, and like Goblintown is like down to Goblintown. I was like, the bottom looks like Goblintown a little bit, and I was like, I gotta reach out to whoever this is. So I went online. I basically found who the person was. It's a guy. The person who
was playing the game, who wasn't the guy who made the game.
I found out who the developer of the game was.
Developer of the game.
And
okay.
It's a guy who lives in either Kazakhstan or Kyrgyzstan or one of the a stan, yeah, basically a stan. And I reach out and I'm just like, I love the game. You've done an amazing job. This is incredible, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, can we talk? Like, I'm one of the co-founders of this thing called Goblintown, blah. Doesn't respond the first day. The next day I hit him again. I'm like, hey, like just following up on this. Really love it. Would love to figure out something to do. Then I add, hey, by the way, we also have, he only had like on Twitter, like a little under 100 followers. On like the gaming account. So I follow up and I say, hey, we have 120,000 followers on Twitter. Like, would love to like promote it, right?
Yeah, and suddenly he's like, hi, yes. Would you like to chat?
By the way, responded a minute later. I'm not even joking. And originally I was asking, can you play as a goblin, right? I was like, that would be really cool. Like a goblin trying to escape Goblintown. And he's like, hey, that's a little complicated. What if we put it on like, you sent me, well, he's like, first send me some visuals. I want to understand, make sure that this even makes sense. And then we could talk. I sent him a bunch of the art, Gray's art, which is, awesome.
Super cool.
And he saw like immediately, like he understood why I was reaching out. He's like, art's awesome. Really like it. I sort of want to put it everywhere. It sort of makes sense. It feels right. And then he's like, let me put it on the back of his thing. And let me put Goblintown on the front, and like Gobby, who's the sort of the face of Goblintown, let me put him on the back. And then he did. And then people just started naturally finding it. And at the same time, he did it on Sunday. And by Thursday, like Kai Cenat was like, one of the number one streamers was playing the game for like 8 hours. And it was just going everywhere. And the first one who really noticed it was Bryson in the sort of
that makes sense. Yeah.
But it's really more of just IP and branding. And sort of just to take a step back, your question from before is like, how are we approaching this, or how are we thinking about it? The way we think about it is like, IP and storytelling and characters, right? So
Yeah.
we've got Goblintown, which is obviously the most popular piece of IP that we have. We have something called the 187, which is 187 sort of characters.
That was your first drop.
Yeah, that was the first drop. And that's all like 187 characters in the like truth universe. We're not sure if we're going to call it the truth universe, but basically under the truth umbrella is like 187 characters. We also have Illuminati NFT, which is like just visually very beautiful collection. And then we've got just other characters in our ecosystem that we've sort of come up with. We've got Grumples, we've got a bunch of other things. So the way we sort of look at it is like, if you create great IP, if you create great stories, if you create great characters, you can do everything. You know what I mean by do everything is like, think about some of the biggest brands in the world, right? Think about Star Wars, right? You know, and we've always said that like the 187 in our universe is like a little bit of Star Wars, a little bit of Fifth Element, a little bit of Marvel. It's like, you know, so, you know, we've got the Jedi, right? Which are like goblins. We've got the, you know, Darth Vader, who's the CEO of Big Inc. You know, he's like basically the big bad. We're introducing his employees, which are basically stormtroopers, just to like peg it to something that like people can understand. It's not exactly apples to apples, but and now you sort of like, so we've got this like universe that we're building, but you look at Star Wars, right? Star Wars came out in the 70s. You know, didn't make more movies until early 2000s. Now they have TV shows. And like the reason why they can do that is because they have great characters, they have great story, they have great IP. And when you have great IP, you can sort of do anything. So they do movies, they do TV, they do amusement parks, they do merch. You can do all of that when you have great IP. Look at any medium that's ever come out, right? You don't think of Pokemon as like mobile gaming, right? You know, Pokemon Go a little bit, but it originally came out from the Game Boy, right? Marvel and DC came from comic books, right? When you have these mediums that come out, right? IP gets made. So same with NFT. We think IP is going to be created from that, and we think out of all the stories out there, you know, or the characters out there, or the IP out there in, you know, NFT land, PFP land, we have one of the better shots to create something lasting and interesting outside of Web3 ecosystem.
So what is the first, I should say the second medium, because the first medium through which you're telling stories is obviously through the NFTs, and the story starts to get teased out a bit. And again, you have this big ink component, which is adding on to it. So the story is getting developed a little more. You have stories for individual characters a bit, you know, that I think I've seen like some like trading card looking things, you know, and so
trading card looking, like Dungeons and Dragons style.
Yeah. But so what becomes the mecca in terms of really fleshing out a story? Is it something that you tell on social media? Is it a movie? Is it television? How do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, we've been thinking a lot about like we have a general narrative, right, that we've told through, you know, I think we were the first, I don't remember a project before, but I think we were either the first or one of the first projects to like update the metadata. People forget it was such a taboo thing to update metadata. Now, like Jack Butcher and OPENSEA.
No, still though, I'm like, I was interviewing somebody about ordinals, and they were Leonidas, and he was like, you know, the great thing about ordinals is you can't update the metadata. What the hell are we doing updating metadata? You know, and I was like, no, I think that's a really cool part of. I think there's different strokes for different folks. If totally.
It's part of the meaning to update it in the future is less. But if it's part of the the narrative. So I mean, when we dropped Goblintown, we had 5 mysterious eggs, and we basically every 2-3 days would update the metadata for the egg. First it was an egg, then the egg cracked, then a goblin came and smashed it, and then basically it was like either images or GIFs over a month and a half period, and it eventually told the story of the origin of Big Mister and the CEO of Big Inc., which you didn't know at the time, but you were introducing the bad guy. And so using technology and using blockchain as a storytelling mechanism, there's a handful of ways to go about it. You know, for example, 10KTF does a really great job. I think Thursday they do a drop and they tell a little bit more of the story, and they've just created this amazing sort of, you know, if
serialized, yeah.
but they're telling a story, but they're not necessarily telling it on chain, right? And it's affecting things like, something will happen and then, okay, now we have a new drop or something. But the way that we've been sort of thinking about it, or the way that I've been thinking about it, is like going back to the supply and demand thing. So I mentioned before, everyone cares about making money in this space, right? Floor price is king. It doesn't really matter anything else. If you have a high floor price, people are happy. It doesn't even matter what you're doing. If you have a low floor price, people are upset. And that's just a reality and a thing I believe to be true. And I think most people will agree with that. Yes. Now, the other side of it is another big problem is there's just too many NFTs, and it's not necessarily a truth thing, but it is a truth. It's a truth problem, but it's also a just general space, right? When you have,
well, I wanted to ask you, Big Ink has what, 20,000, 15,000?
15,000, but it's very deflationary, and you'll find out next Friday, which is when the burn is. For the acceptance letters, it's very deflationary. I would be surprised if we end up with 5,000 employees at Big Ink. Yeah. And there's some things that you've seen before, and then one or two new things that you haven't seen before in terms of the collection. So there's the demand side, which is at an all-time low for just regular NFTs, and then fluctuating depending on the collection. But the supply side, you can control a little bit more, because you decide how many NFTs you want to put out in the world. And so, I guess the way I sort of am thinking about it is there's just too much supply in general. When you have 100,000 wallets going after a 10K collection, all right, you can try to, there's enough demand. But there is just not enough demand right now, and the market is currently constricting. It's not expanding, right? Yep. And if I was starting all over again, put the money aside of how much money you'd want to make on a project, whether you're selling it or you're taking royalties or whatever, I would start with a much, much smaller holder base that got holder benefits and a much larger audience that was completely 100% consumers. Not what we have right now, which is a combination of speculators, gamblers, a few other things, thinking that they're investors, right? When I hear someone say oh, I'm an investor in Doodles, or I'm an investor in Moonbirds, or I'm an investor in Bored Apes, I'm oh, you
in Yuga Labs, the paper investment contract.
No, I own a Bored Ape, and I'm bro, come on, it's it feels cringy. It's
yeah,
that is not an investment, or at least the way that most people think of an investment. But these people think that they're investors, right? And that's right now there is a real big, you see what's happening with holders of any collection and the team that's building, right? And they're at odds, because the teams that are building typically want volume, because that is where they get royalties, right? And the people who maybe minted early, or they were here in 2021 and 2022, they made money and they maybe don't own anymore, so they're not even in your community anymore. And then the people that are still holding are just hey, I want you to do more. But the thing is, you do more doesn't really. Right now we're in it doesn't affect your floor.
Explain.
Yeah.
And I want to get back to this question of what is the end storytelling mechanism, or not that there has to be one end, but how are you thinking about that? But when you say you would have a super small number of collectors and then you would have a broader base of consumers, how do you actually make something like that happen? Is that, what would that look like?
Well, working on some stuff right now that I just it's a little too early, but trying to do some crazy ass shit that would be, that would make that possible. It's easy to do it when you set it up from the start. It's a little harder when you do it in the future. Right now, the 10K collections, even 15K, 20K collections, they're just not sustainable. It just requires hype. Because in the end of the day, what I've realized over the last year is that people don't actually care if you executing a roadmap. They don't actually care about what you're actually doing.
They want number go up.
They would just want number to go up, and they want speculation, because speculation equals
number
hype,
go up.
Hype equals number go up, and that just, it doesn't last. It doesn't last. No matter what you do, it just doesn't last. And that's this is what Ben Eth learned, right? He was oh, I'm just going to continue to hype, and I'm going to launch. He launched 10 tokens in the last month, right? And he learning the hard way that you it just doesn't.
I don't know, $20 million, not such a hard way. If the SEC comes after him, I'll think he's learning the hard way. Yeah. Well, let me say this. So you mentioned 10KTF, who I agree has done an amazing job and does an amazing job. I also think it's complicated and a lot of people don't follow it because it's hard to actually follow along everything they're doing. So NFTs, you know, I think about that in the context of what you say with the egg thing, which I think was really cool but it's not a sustainable way for the masses to consume.
No, most people aren't looking at OpenSea to see a story, right? So, I mean, it's not that distant. It's not that dissimilar to like any other type of IP character story creation, right? There's a bunch of avenues, right? There's movies, there's TV shows, but there's like modern stuff. For example, like
YouTube.
You know, when Goblintown came out, we were hit up by every single studio to do something, right? It was just like, I mean, listen, the word of last year was Goblin Mode, right? Like, I'm not gonna say we were exactly the reason why it happened, but we were the face of.
You hit the meta. You were the meta, and you did. And it was the free mint meta. Like you hit the zeitgeist on like 3 different levels perfectly.
Yeah, and then I was just looking back because it was a year ago. We were like NFT NYC, and I don't know if you remember those like photos outside on like in Chelsea for the party. I mean, those it was like a whole lot. We had room for 200, 300 people in the thing, and there was 1,500 people on the street. Literally the commissioner had to come down to like, that's why it started like an hour late, but it was wild. But so here's the thing, the things that make sense. So we were hit up by all these things and it just wasn't right. Like, think about it even logically. Like, do you really want to watch like a 30-minute cartoon about Goblintown right now? No. Like, the people that are in this space, even I, like running it, like wouldn't want to watch that. What I'd want to watch is like the ADHD version of that, which is like a 20, 30 second.
Okay, so you're saying short form, which I love, short form video. Does Goblintown have a TikTok?
We don't. All we have is Twitter. Okay. But we're exploring all that.
Well, Twitter's also, you know, teasing that it's going to be a very video friendly platform, or I guess already is. Obviously, you got Tucker doing his thing and whatever. So they're trying to get into that game. Is that something like? Is that like? How much is that actually in the work, and how much is this the hypothesis? Your working hypothesis right now?
I'd say the number one focus for me right now, well, like there's like 2 things, right? There's one is like we the big ink burn next Friday, right? And it's like a whole week of explaining how it is, and this is like a progression in the story. So, and then it's like, okay, all the different ways we can create stories and characters, right? We've introduced only 30 out of the 187 characters, and we slowly release them. Like we release usually one a week. We took a break in June so that we can focus on Big Ink. We typically release one a week. If you go to the 187.xyz, they're like pretty rich, amazing one-of-one characters drawn by Process Gray. And then you can dig in and see more story about them, some background about them. Actually, if you look, Big Ink was mentioned like almost a year ago in one of the characters, but not like it was.
That's some Taylor Swift level Easter egging.
But it was like a shadowy organization, right? It wasn't, and we knew about Big Ink. But so anyway, there's a bunch of that, and then the way sort of I see it is we need to solve a few of the things I believe to be true. Everyone wants to make money, you know, too many NFTs, and like, you know, you could read between the lines, which is like, how do you get people to destroy their NFTs? You have to create an incentive for them, and make it more valuable for it to be destroyed than to own it. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the crazy shit we're trying to figure out. Okay. And I think we have a solution. A lot of the stuff is just we're still in like figuring it out.
Ideation
mode. Like the next thing after Big Ink is like, how do we get a much smaller base of people, and then just, you know, everyone is on. It's not us versus the holder. We're all on the same side, and then it's like, okay, let's go and find consumers. Let's create great stories and focus on that, as opposed to, I need the next drop here, and I want to dilute the ecosystem even more, and I have to you know what I mean? It's like, let's all get on the same side, and then focus our building 100% on getting our stuff consumed.
Let me introduce you to a brand new company that I could not be more excited about, Web3 Sense. a Web3 analytics platform that combines on-chain data with social media insights to give you the deepest, most meaningful intelligence into any NFT community. I have tested other analytics platforms out there, but Web3 Sense has the most comprehensive capabilities I've seen in the NFT ecosystem. They apply sophisticated data science to wallet histories to determine behavioral patterns and help shape predictive analytics. In other words, they can tell you which Twitter accounts are actually the influencers in your space. And they can tell you what resonates most within a community by looking at what other communities' token holders are involved in. The number of use cases here is virtually unlimited. So whether you're a trader, creator, institution, brand, agency, I promise Web3 Sense has data that you want to see with the deep and actionable insights that you need to build, analyze, grow, start, whatever you want to do within the NFT space and in terms of building a business and a community. Now, they are still in very early days, so they're eager to connect with the community. So if you're interested in learning more about what Web3 Sense can do for you and your business, and you should be, go and fill out the very short form linked to in the show notes, and someone from their team will reach out with more information and an opportunity for a product demo. Trust me, you won't regret it. Y'all know I love Ledger, the world leader in critical digital asset security. When you own crypto, what you actually own is a private key that gives you access to your coins. It is imperative that you keep this key safe, and Ledger wallets are the best way to do that. The Nano S Plus and Nano X Ledger wallets, paired with the Ledger Live app, give you the best way to start your crypto journey while maintaining full control over your digital assets. Send and sign your NFT transactions with full transparency in the Ledger Live app. What you see is what you sign. And y'all have heard me talk about Ledger Stacks before. Well, due to unprecedented demand, Ledger has received all the Ledger Stacks pre-orders that it can fulfill through summer 2023. And so they have decided to pause the pre-orders. Ledger is incredibly grateful for the community's support and is working hard to get current pre-orders out and ready to ship so that they can make even more Ledger Stacks to keep your digital assets secure. Sign up for the Ledger Stacks waitlist and be the first to know when Ledger Stacks are available again for pre-orders. But don't leave your digital assets susceptible to breach or hack in the meantime. Order your Nano S Plus or Nano X today by visiting shop.ledger.com or clicking the link in the show notes. We talk about you hit the zeitgeist on like a bunch of different levels. That was just magic. And I was talking to my producer earlier and we were talking about that first Goblintown space and just like everyone starts speaking in Goblin and just the ridiculousness of it. Do you think Goblintown is replicable in terms of like, could somebody do something like that again? Or was there a magic of the moment, the timing, the mystery of being anonymous? Like,
yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think it definitely hit on a lot of things, right? A lot of lightning in a bottle. That being said, like it's everyone on the team was just really good at what they did, like, you know, and I honestly think our best days are even like ahead of us. I know that sounds crazy, but I just so much believe in the team's ability to create and do good stuff and do it fast. Like we don't talk about it much, but Goblintown was made in 10 days. Like
that's wild.
10 days. 10 days from my text to Gray and Caesar with the idea, like very high level idea, to actually launching it on that Friday right at VCon was, I believe, 10 days. It was it launched on the it may even be less than 10 days. So it's just, you know, our ability to do things really quick. So is it possible to do something like that again? Yeah, like the right opportunity comes and the right story we want to tell comes. I like to think about it as like, you know, most inspired by someone like Marvel, right? Captain America came out in 1939, 1940, right like around the first cover was Captain America punching Hitler, you know? So around 1940s, a bunch of other characters came out, the Human Torch, a few other things. 1960, Jack Kirby, Stan Lee started basically a 4-year run that is like unheard of, right? It was Fantastic Four was first, then it was X-Men, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Guardians of the Galaxy, Iron Man, the Hulk, Thor, all in a 4-year period, right? Just wild. Wow. And that like 4-year period just created the most unbelievable stories and unbelievable IP. Creating great stories and creating great characters is really about the people doing it as opposed to the thing itself.
Yeah.
We also caught lightning, but I'd like to believe that there's so much Like,
well, there is interesting magic around Goblintown. It caught lightning at the time, but even this Twitch example that you're giving, right? There's like a kismet. There's like this I guess it speaks to your point about IP. Like if you build IP that has a strong enough lane, like the other thing that was so awesome about Goblintown at the time and now still, right? But was the website. Like that's what got everybody hype, was like, or for me at least, I remember that got me hype. Like I went there, it was fucking good, and it created a vibe. Like you have a very clear, distinct, unique
like brand.
It's branding. It's a very strong brand, which means that you have opportunities that pop up, like, oh, this Twitch game, and the Twitch, the creator of the game is like, oh yeah, like this fits because I feel it immediately. I feel exactly what this means. So I think that will. There'll be I agree with you in the sense that like it feels like that something like that will always create moments. Like if you have a really strong brand like that and you're precious about it, you can create more moments will pop up and arise.
I mean, listen, we look at Goblintown specifically as like we joke. I joke. I'm not going to put this on anyone else besides me. I joke. I'm like, Goblintown is like they're like the Kardashians, right? I know we've joked about Kardashians before, but they're like the Kardashians because they're like popular on every platform, right? So every metaverse like really loves Truth Labs and us, and they want us there. Every marketplace, because it's like we're not building a metaverse. We're not building, an exchange or whatever. We do have a marketplace, but that was for other things. That was more of a hedge. But like, we want to be popular on all of them, right? The Kardashians have hundreds of millions of followers on TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram and Twitter. You know what I mean? They're not going and building their own social network, right? And like, they're smart. They're not going to, because they know that's a different skill set that's required, right? So, we want goblins to be everywhere. It's also like the CC0 aspect of it, right? It's like a very like Minions, Minions like Universal Minions.
Of course. Though like, Minions is not exactly CC0. They're not like, they don't litigate the way Disney does. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm
sure if somebody like tried to commercialize Minions to a high degree, it'd be interesting to see what happens. Like they're fine with it proliferating as a symbol on a party store, but that's a little different than like somebody being like, I'm going to go create a Minions movie with this, which does that complicate things for you when you think about telling stories?
No, because we own the Goblintown branding, right? We trademarked the Goblintown name. It's just the characters, right? The NFTs, and we can make more. Not NFTs, but we can make more characters, right? We have a few characters that we've introduced. We partnered with a company called D-Labs. They have a video game, like a racing game, and we made a specific goblin for them. And it's just, it lives outside the collection. So, I mean, that's how we think about it.
When it launched, and I'm sure you've been asked this before, but like, were you shocked by the reaction, or like even thinking about that first space in particular? Like, what was your reaction when felt like everybody in NFTs was suddenly on this space, like talking in gobbledygook language?
Yeah. No, it's funny. I was looking back at the text because it was like the 1 year anniversary recently. And I was like, I shared some of them on Twitter of like how the sausage was made a little bit. And honestly, we were just having fun, right? We're like, let's commemorate the crash. People forget, like 2 to 3 weeks before Goblintown came out, Luna,
the other
Terra,
side mint. Oh,
all crashed.
The other side mint the month after?
No, it was before.
It was right before.
Yeah, because I think we made some jokes about like gas being high and other side.
Yeah, so, when that just like sucked all the liquidity out. Okay, so Terra Luna had just happened.
Terra and Luna, that was May 1st, like the first week of May. And then Do Kwon. By the way, originally we only followed Steve Aoki, Do Kwon, and like one or two other things. And then the team's like, we stopped following Do Kwon, and they're like, all right, fine. Anyway, so we like everyone was really down. Everyone thought it was over, right? And this sort of like came out of nowhere. But we were just having fun, trying to like mess around. And honestly, our only concern when we were working on it, because we were just like not sleeping for a week,
frozen.
Our only concern was we're like, we want to do this anonymously because we want people to focus on the art. We want people to focus on like the fun of it and not like the team behind it. Because everyone was just obsessing. Like it was just like Azuki and like Tetendies and Funks and all that stuff was having its thing. And it's like the reason why Azuki took off, this is actually Caesar's insight. The reason why Azuki took off is because there wasn't any of the baggage of tendies, funks, all that stuff, right? It was just its own unique thing. And people weren't thinking about the team. They were just thinking about how the art made them feel and all that stuff. And so we were just like, okay, let's just focus on the art. Let's, and for better or for worse, by being like this anonymous and playing around with who the team is, everyone started speculating, and that's where
right.
Wild. We didn't anticipate that. But our main concern was we were fearful that nobody would mint the free version because there was no team behind it. We thought everyone would think it's like a wallet drainer. So that's where we hit up Mike Dudas, who's a good friend of Caesar and myself, and we were just like, hey, like, we're working on this fun thing. We want to put it out there. We don't know how it's going to do. It's going to be free, but we just don't want anyone
to think it's fake,
drain their wallet. Can you be like, and Mike's like, it was perfect because he was in like the middle quadrant of like, VC, startup, DeFi, like NFT, crypto. Like he was like right in the perfect center. And so we felt like,
and he's got a fun personality on Twitter. Like he's a sassy Twitterer.
He's a sassy Twitterer, and he was a journalist at one point, or at least ran the block. And so we're like, can you just tweet this out as like, hey, this is like safe. And that's, and then we also timed it. There was some strategy behind it, right? It wasn't just like blind. We had some thoughts behind it. We had the egg story that we were doing. Like we had a bunch of things, but it just all came together like sort of really perfectly. Yeah. And then we just continued to run. But yeah, like we weren't thinking about like how it was going to be received. Definitely didn't expect it to be received the way it was. But our main concern was like, nope, we're never going to sell this thing out because no one's going to trust it.
How did you time your reveal of being truth?
We had a bunch of plans for NFT NYC. For Illuminati. We had like rented out Terminal 5, is that what's called up there?
I think so. Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Like Midtown.
Yeah, Midtown. We had rented that out for this crazy thing, and the DAO was basically funding it. And we were doing a Goblintown party, and we knew we were gonna do like a late night Goblintown underground thing. And we also felt like it had sort of run its course of what we could do being anonymous. Like you look at something like Nakamigos, like on one hand, it's like stay anonymous forever because people will just tear you apart. On the other side, it's like you can't do as much, right? So
yeah, I thought it might be you, by the way. I thought it might be Truth again because it had the labs thing, and you had sort of told me way back when that you guys were going to be doing a secret thing, and I was like, I don't know, maybe it's Truth.
Yeah.
I didn't speculate on it publicly.
There was a different secret thing that was supposed to be involved with Big Ink. And let's just say like last minute, 11th hour, we needed to change some things. Okay. And we're still probably going to do some stuff with the people that we were supposed to do it with, but we couldn't do it the same way we wanted to. So we had to just adjust like how we wanted to go about it.
Yeah.
If we could have done it the way we wanted to do it, it would have been bananas. But honestly, just like the whole crypto space scared some people.
Oh, yeah. That's too bad.
Bigger.
I also get it. Yeah. So, okay, I have a couple questions though as well. So would you recommend other teams go anonymous? Like under what conditions would you recommend something like what you guys did? Also, it's interesting because after you revealed, the price went down because it was very buy the rumor, sell the news of like people were speculating it's Yuga, you know what I mean? Or Larva. Yeah, you guys knew that was coming.
There was never a scenario unless we were Larva or Yuga that it would live up to anyone's expectations.
Or like, And Kanye, that he's a bad example because he's controversial, but you know what I'm saying? Like, unless it's like
people.
Yeah, like, people, yeah.
Right? And we really did not, like, the ones that people really thought we were, which was Yuga, we were literally denied it, like, immediately. But nobody reads in this space. Nobody looks at things. They, like, form their own narrative, and then they run with it, and they share, their thoughts. Yeah, we knew that was going to happen. Part of me has always thought, like, I've only changed recently. My whole thing was like, for the longest time, was like, if you just like execute your roadmap or you just execute what you want to do, like everything else sorts itself out. And I used to believe that to be true. And I don't really believe that fully to be true anymore. I think I think you need to focus more on actually mechanics and force things as opposed to just hoping for the best, right? Like, but yeah, I mean, some people I would recommend, I think it's really case by case basis, right? Like, if you have a really good idea, there's like some realities of the space. Like, people will judge you based on the thing you did before, right? Azuki would not have a 17th ETH floor if people knew about funks, TDs, and all that stuff, because you'd be pegged to whatever that floor was, right?
Right.
And that's sort of the reality of the space. Whether it's for better or for worse, that's just, reality.
Mm-hmm.
So in some scenarios, if you feel like you have something really, really good and you want it to live on its own merits to start, maybe Anonymous makes sense. But it's, I don't know. I think the space also needs to change a lot. I think the space is the expectations of a project, right, to be like basically publicly traded from day one is insane.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, it is.
It's just insane. Like,
but it's weird. But also, they're collecting the money up front, right? It's such a weird thing because you're also not having to find product market fit.
That's the funny thing is that like one of the ideas, I have texts with like Caesar and Gray talking about it, was the reason why we didn't charge anything is we wanted to earn it. Like, we wanted to earn on the royalties. And we charge a higher normally in the royalties, but we're like, all right, if we do well, we'll earn it, and if we don't, we won't. And we did, and still people are mad, right? We gave it for free. Of course. Like we literally said no utility, no roadmap.
No Discord, nothing.
And it's what's happened with Poly right now, right? Poly says you literally get nothing. And people are like, wait, I was expecting like a token called nothing. And it's like, it's like flabbergasting a little bit.
It is a little
right?
Let me ask you this. You may not feel comfortable answering this. Can you speak to y'all's Runway? You did so well. You did very well in secondary on Goblintown, but then, of course, now royalties isn't really a business model anymore. Like, how's it going?
Did change things. I mean, we released this thing called fublur.com, which
That's right.
And we changed all the contracts to go back to as basically supporting royalties. Now, we've covered the cost that it costs to do it. Is it some sort of like crazy amount of secondaries? No. Luckily, the way we sort of set it up is the team and how we're compensated is we are. I mean, just to be completely transparent, we're transforming into a corporation. We started off as an LLC. The way we started off was like, hey, this is a fun project. We all like each other. We're all like working with each other. Now we're like, okay, we see there's a massive opportunity here. We have a bunch of runway, right, to be able to do stuff, but also everyone was like an owner, right? It was an owner of a business. And so everyone's like, hey, the amount you're getting is like, you're here for some time, right? Like, everyone is sort of locked in to like, we're going to work on this, whether the royalties are coming in or not, we're going to work on this and we're going to try to build this thing. I think after Big Ink burn happens, with some of the stuff I'm working on right now, there's going to be like a big, I want to call it like a reset. And we'll be like sharing with our community and also hopefully making a lot of noise around it of like a path forward for a project like ourselves, and other people can copy if they want, of like, how can you fix the incentive problem? How can you get everyone on the same page? How can you get your community not in a PvP mode between each other and between you, but how can you get everyone on the same page for a higher goal? And I'm excited because honestly, some of the stuff, I mean, one of the things that we want to do, it was like, this is a really good idea. We need to talk to our lawyers to make sure like this is legal. Obviously, we never do anything that's not legal,
of course.
Because we want to also sing it from the rooftop. So, when we set up the DAO for the Illuminati DAO, like that took months of legal to just do it right, to make sure the members don't have any liability. It's set up as a foundation nonprofit.
Is what I hear you saying. Like, you guys have good runway. You've got like plenty of cash in the bank, and you pay right now. It's like a salary model, but like, look, as you shift from LLC to corp, like playing around with different equity model potentials such that everyone's incentivized or aligned properly?
Yeah, we've been approached by a lot of investors over time to like, I mean, it was so funny when we like originally launched Goblintown and it was going like wild. Investors trying to like talk goblin in emails to us.
Oh my God.
You know, like, hey, we really are interested in what you're doing, and here's
PP.
goblin language.
Yeah.
No, not like, yeah, but like it just like the lettering because it's like a style.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Not like I didn't hear anyone do any voices. Oh,
Okay.
actually,
Okay.
sorry. There was someone who wanted to partner with us, and it was like a CEO, and I think he's like worth a few $100 million, maybe even $1 billion at like a gaming company, and he literally did speak goblin on a call.
Oh my God.
So yeah, we've had some stories there, but the idea that they're being like, you know, there's a handful of ways to go about it, you know, in terms of giving us as much runway as possible to tell stories, to take all the shots we want to take. So we're playing around with a lot of things right now, and nothing to really like announce yet, but like all this is sort of related and connected.
Yeah. Okay, to close, I want to talk a little bit about Big Ink here. First of all, why now? Why launch in this market?
Yeah, I mean, 90% of the drop was given for free to holders of Illuminati and Goblins. So it wasn't like we were doing some crazy massive sale. We understood the market. We did do like this little special commemorative NFT of like PP Goblins, which is like Pepe Goblin mix combo.
They looked cool too.
Yeah, no, they're like, there's like a little community that like are obsessed with them, and like that's like exactly what they should be, you know?
Yeah.
There's no utility. There's no royalties on it. There's no utility on it. But like I'd probably bet that like in a year, all those like people who are obsessed with it will just buy them all, and it'll be like a 1/8 floor, just because like there's no market, but there's also no sellers really.
No demand or supply.
No demand or supply, exactly. Infinite floor. And enough demand, no supply.
Sure. There you go. Yeah.
But no, in terms of Big Ink, why now? I mean, we only had half the story. Like Goblintown was really from the jump, sort of like an anti-corporate story. Like we knew about Big Ink since July of last year. We were playing around with like the different ways to tell it. And it was really this anti-corporate story where like Big Ink is like the conglomerate. They're not necessarily bad, although we've evolved them into being like they are kidnapping animals and brainwashing them and stuff.
So bad.
So they're bad, but they're like the foil of goblins. Goblins are historically bad, usually in most you know, in Harry Potter. You know, goblins were bad. Like the double crossing Harry and was it in Deathly Hallows? And
what's like Smeagol, who's not necessarily bad, but like is Smeagol a goblin?
I don't think so. He's something. Okay. He's definitely not a goblin.
Okay.
But the point being like you know, introducing the other, like we basically had the Jedi for the past year, and we didn't have we're always hinting that there is a opposition, and we just never introduced them. So we needed to introduce them, and and the collection is like wild. Like I think there's like 60 plus heads. Every animal you could think of that is represented as an NFT. There's a penguin, there's a seal, there's a monkey, there's literally every animal has been kidnapped by Big Ink, and they work there now. And it was also just like, you know, be furthering the story as much as like giving something to our holders. But these are the last, like Big Ink will be the last like big collection from us. You know, going forward, there may be little small character collections, but not this is it, right? And other stuff we're doing to just like lower supply in general in the ecosystem. So it was more of like introducing these characters that now we have like so much to play with in terms of storytelling.
You guys do such a good job at your launches. Again, Goblintown obviously having this amazing website and the free and the
down bad board for
like everything you did there. And then with Big Ink, the fun of like connect your wallet, see who's down the worst.
And Dingling one on that one.
Oh yeah.
And by the way, shout out to Dingling for being a good sport. Dingling actually isn't that bad of a trader. The problem is there's like 8 prompts, and Dingling doesn't sell anything. And the one of the prompts is like basically like round tripping, like of like, so I think like there's like 1,000 bonsai NFT, like, you know, remember that bonsai NFT, the tree, he's like 1,000 of those, and he just never sold anything. So he just got like millions of points on one day.
Round tripping.
Yeah, and just like that's why he ended up as the as the worst trader, and he got the one of one keys to Big Ink, and it's like sort of a joke on the key, the monkey butthole key from like Yuga,
Okay.
right?
Okay, yeah.
But you got Dingling got the keys to Big Ink, and that's because Dingling is getting the one of one janitor of Big Ink. It's literally like
Oh, that's
keys to
awesome.
all the offices because they're literally cleaning like the place up.
The toilets. So this was connecting up to for me was I've interviewed Frank a couple of times, and I think both times I've interviewed him, he's mentioned the fact that they think about the tweet before they launch anything. Like they start with the tweet almost. It's like starting with the press release.
It's like
They
Amazon.
start with the tweet. Yeah, exactly. And then work backwards into the launch. You guys are very good at splashy, fun launch ideas. Do you do something similar, or what is your process?
No, we don't start with the tweet. Everyone's different on the team, and everyone brings different things and has different ideas. Ours typically starts with an idea, and then we're very much like yes and. So like it's like okay, yes. What about this? So like some of the stuff we're working on that like I can't talk about yet. Like I had an idea, and I brought it to Gray and Caesar, and then they're like, yeah, it's good. And then like Gray actually came up with an even better idea on top of it. And it's not that we're not doing we're going to do mine, but actually we're going to do his first and then do mine because they're actually interconnected to some degree. So that's how we like, we're very much like when we sit down and like collaborate, like in brainstorm, that's typically where the idea is. Like someone will come with an idea and then we'll shoot the shit on the idea. And then it will sort of evolve until we find something we like.
Okay, so in our last couple of questions here, let me circle back to where we started this, which was talking about Only Up That Game. What does the future there look like? Are you doing more with them? I don't know much about the game, how it plays, but I'd be curious what you're thinking.
I mean, this will have aired already. So, I mean, in the next 24 hours of right now of us talking, there's going to be, which is the Friday the 16th. You will be able to wear a goblin mask, like Gobby, his mask. You'll be able to play as
that's awesome.
Gobby,
as a goblin.
As a goblin, on your mask. And then 187, Illuminati, Big Ink, all that stuff's gonna be plastered all over the game. And it's gonna like, I sent the guy a bunch of stuff, and he's gonna play around. And then is
that monetized, or is that just like a partnership you guys are both getting something out of? Or
it's a partnership. Which like sponsoring, we like basically I was like offering to like, hey, we'll build, like we want to pay for you to like play as a goblin. I know he's told me a few things. He said one, he's working on an online version because right now it's on Steam, just on PC, working on an online version. And then he's also working on playing as other types of characters in a few months.
Okay, last question. So folks may or may not know that you also were the co-founder of Upstream, which, funny enough, like I knew about Upstream because my friend Sarah Wood, you guys have been working together since very early days. And so I knew Upstream before I was even really in crypto. And you guys turned that into a DAO. Like maybe as we leave here, just like tell us a little bit about what's going on there.
So like Upstream, we've raised like a ton of money from VCs, and we are building like a DAO infrastructure company. We've been working on the DAO infrastructure side since like 2021. And, my co-founder and I, our background was like, I've actually been in crypto since 2012, right? Like I was at one of the first crypto adjacent companies called Dwala, which was when my co-founder and I joined, Bitcoin was like, sub $5. And it was one of the only ways to get money in and out of the exchanges. So just been in this space for a long time. In and out, like started a different company in social media analytics space, but believe that the next phase of things that come from blockchain, gaming, DAOs are going to be big. And building DAO infrastructure, building the best way to describe it, probably like Shopify of DAOs, right? You could build a website, you could build an e-commerce site, but like you use Shopify because it's just easier. Right? You could build a DAO. Right now, most people, when they build DAOs, they just stitch like 5 to 10 tools together. But we want to build the best way to start and run a DAO. So that infrastructure where like, it's just easier to go to us and use our tool, like no code, full stack, all the stuff there, the voting, the proposals, the this, the that. So we've been building that. We've been building the infrastructure, getting all of that in place. So to take advantage of when DAOs start to become popular and hot and everyone wants to start one, everyone wants to join one, we will be positioned. So just really excited about that. You know, we've been dog fooding our own stuff, similar to like early days Shopify. I think it was like a snowboard e-commerce site that the founders ran. Like, and the same thing, like Illuminati NFT DAO, right? That's on Upstream. It was like just dog fooding. We launched something called My First DAO. My First DAO is essentially a 6-month course just learning about like everything to start or run your own DAO or just be a good member of a DAO. So we're just like dog fooding our own stuff, trying. We have a few other cool ideas we're playing around with, like how could you like launch the next Constitution DAO, right? Like what would excite people to want to join DAOs, start their own DAOs? And we're just like dog fooding it because we can't control that the demand for DAOs is just not currently there yet. You know, it's like it's sporadic.
I'm a little skeptical of them in general. Like I'm not sure that I think it'll ever go crazy.
Yeah.
But that's a separate conversation.
And then I can come on and we could talk about like the environment that it will take off. The way I think about DAOs, and I can end with this, is like, why did NFTs take off, right? NFTs is a file type, ultimately. It's MP3, right? We're caught up on the word NFT. It's a digital collectible. But like, why did NFTs take it? Well, I bought an NFT. It was $500. I sold it for $5,000 24 hours later. And I go to my friend. I'm like, hey, look what I did. I took this little JPEG and I sold it for $5,000. Like, holy crap, I want to do that too. And they go buy, and then they maybe start their own collection, and it sort of spirals. And then everyone wants to start and buy NFTs for wealth, right? This is all programmable money at the end of the day. When I talked earlier about everyone's here to make money, it's programmable money. It makes a lot of sense. Now, how do DAOs take off? Probably in not that different of a way, meaning people will be making money by starting and joining DAOs. And the question is, how do you create that environment? Because once people are making money by starting and joining DAOs, they will tell other people, and those people will want to start and join DAOs. And then, you know, it's the same way. As soon as people start making money by playing video games, right, and not just play to earn and like just sit there bashing buttons, but once people start actually making money playing video games, whether it's selling something or winning something, and you know what I mean, like whether you're the buyer or the seller in the marketplace, once that starts happening, everyone's gonna be like, oh, I can't play games if I'm not making money, and they're gonna want to make money. So it all rhymes a little bit.
I'm not going to push back only because I don't want to take us down a crazy rabbit hole as we're nearing the end of this episode, but I would be happy to have you back on and talk about it a bit more.
Happy to talk about it anytime. I think about it all day. So,
HAT, it was a blast. Thank you for being here. And we'll follow up again another time. Can't wait to see what's next for the Goblin world. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Overpriced JPEGs. If you liked this conversation, if you liked this episode, please go ahead and hit subscribe. It helps me out, it helps the show out, and it means you will get alerts and updates when we post new content. Thanks again.